Okay, should be good
Beautiful.
now.
Thank you.
Okay, looking at Revit,
Yes.
and I've tried to organize the diagrams a little bit because we've got so many of them now. So over here in Project Browser, we see all the diagrams, which I kind of haven't found a place to stick them yet. So they're kind of just stuck here. It's a few of they're not necessarily the original gas diagrams, and they're not these new gas distribution diagrams either. They're sort of the vacuum system and the scrubber diagram. It's just, I don't know, just extra diagrams here, but it separates them out a little bit. So we've got the gas systems, NF3, N2O, inert, toxic, all those sorts of diagrams here, including the first one that's kind of the prototypical one you can refer back to, which is CDA. So that's just a quick note about organization. It's really just to help you find the things that you're looking for. That's all these three folders are. The one that's just diagram, the one that's diagram gas, and the one that's gas distribution. I think that's it. I don't think there's another one. Yeah. The last one here, archive. These are the old ones. They're also renamed do not use. Because it's just sort of a reference to what this diagram used to look like before. You see, it's a 12 inches equal to foot. So it's the old version of this. That's all those are. So you can see we haven't gone through too many of them yet. These are all the ones that have been transitioned from the old style to now this 1/8 inch scale with rotated families.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's look at the original CDA. We see we've got sort of the central plant on top. That's where the CDA is produced. And then it's got a line that goes to the building. This is where all the distribution happens. So this is what the diagram used to look like. It's kind of naturally bisected here. The new version is actually called central plant, and it's just that top portion. We'll get to this stuff up here in a second, all these elements up here. We'll get to that in a second. But you can see all these elements down here. That matches what used to just be here on top. It's the central plant. So in addition to this one, it's now just been split up into this one and the distribution, which is just that bottom portion. So one of the things we do is split it up, central plant and distribution. And there's typically sort of a natural split. Right here would be that split. And if it's ever unclear, then just ask where it should be split. But usually it's pretty clear, the central plant and distribution. So that's the first part of what we're doing, is we're splitting up into two separate diagrams. And the reason for that is to allow room for this stuff up top. So this is instrumentation and controls. It's being done by another firm. They're in the model, working directly in our model. They have their own model where they're doing some, I don't know, background work or something. But the end result of all their work is that all their controls work will end up here in our model as well, just as they've done here. So they are essentially waiting on us to finish our portion of it down here to transition from this diagram, which is 12 inches equal to foot, and it's all together in one, into this diagram, which is 1/8 inch per foot, and it's split up into two so that they have room on top of the sheet. 740
Nice.
in, we go down there. That's this boundary line around the side is meant to sort of show where there's room for that. So, oh wait, this is 742. Didn't mean to open that. So there's what it looks like on the sheet. Okay, so that's the task. Relatively simple. The actual process, though, we talked about, but now that we're recording, you can refer back to it. We'll go through a little bit more in detail. Any questions so far?
Oh, I mean, I don't think so. So let me just clarify. For this particular sheet we have right here, the top part is being done by a third party, but the bottom part is the one that needs to be rescaled.
Yeah, and it's already been done.
Okay. Okay.
So what we're seeing is the finished product. This is what we're trying to get to. You don't have to do anything on this sheet. And we're going to go through which sheets still need to be done. But this one is complete.
Okay, I see.
I
This
just
is
want you
like
to,
the guide, the example, basically for this
right,
one. The other one we need to do is the similar work, but for the other sheets. Okay.
right. Yep. So this one's complete. And the way that you can tell it's complete is by the status. The status is 5, INC has been added. Okay, so what does that mean? Instrumentation and controls have been added. So that group called design group has added all this instrumentation and controls. But all that means, yeah, all right. So that's the end goal. I just thought it'd be good for you to see that. Now let's look at the actual process. Um, okay, so which diagram should we work on? The way that we can sort that out is by the status field. So you could just click through each of these and see what the status is. INC ready. Click on this one. Archive. Actually, that one needs to be moved. So this one's archive. So I'm going to move this over to archive. Okay, so now that one's sitting here. Okay, so as I said, you could, so this one, they're currently standardizing. This one is in Revit, TBD, to be determined. Okay, but all the status parameters are organized in our, get rid of this. We have a schedule, which is diagram status. Just do a search for this. You see all the diagrams here. And we can see the status of each of them right here. So clean dry air, for example, the central plant is completed. So INC added means it's complete. 5 is the last one. Meaning the other company has completed their work. INC ready, let's take a look at that one. So scrubber system, central plant, and its current status is 4 INC ready. Let's see what that looks like. Can I do it from here? Yeah, just have to go up here. 4, so the scrubber system central plant should be up here. Scrubber central system central plant. Let's open that up and I'll close out. Or I'll leave that open. Okay, so we see that we've got a diagram that in its in 1/8 inch scale. So that's correct. And let's see what the original looked like. See the scrubber system. It used to be, actually this one was quite a bit different. So a fair amount of work went into this one. So maybe not the best example, but here's its original state. We've now taken all these scrubbers and set them on the bottom here. So now INC has the ability to add all their control stuff up here. See, all this nice big area is available. So it's INC ready, meaning INC, it's ready for INC to add all their stuff. That makes sense? Yeah.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, yeah, I can
Hello.
hear you now.
Okay. I was like, what's going on? Okay, so as far as scaling or rearranging this part is already done. Now the other company is gonna come and do their part that this is ready for them.
Exactly right. Yep. So this one's good to go. We don't have to do anything with this one.
Mhm.
We're going to let the other company come in and add their controls. Okay. So
Okay.
that's the scrubber system. So this diagram, that's why it's for INC ready. All right. These are the diagrams which we identified as the ones that we should do next. These are the ones we're standardizing. And then I just put a date here for when we expect to be completed. Obviously, this is falling behind, and this is why I need your help. So the TI Water Central Plant. Let's go see what it says standardizing. That means we're converting it from 12 inches equal to foot to 1/8 inch per foot, doing all those things. DI Water Central Plant. Let's see what that one looks like. Should be up here. And obviously you can always just right click, search DI water. There it is. It shows up. So if you ever have trouble finding these, just do a search.
Okay.
All right, with DI water central plant. Okay, so this is a good example of an in progress diagram. So let's close these out and let's look at the original version and this version. So DI water central plant, this is the version that we're changing, and here it is in its original status. All right, so this is what it started out looking like. So you've got all this DI water stuff on top, and then you see this line that's coming down to the distribution. So that's the natural sort of split. All this stuff would be in another diagram, and all this stuff on top would be in the central plant diagram. So that's what has been started here. So my process, as I was going through here, was to make my line work magenta, just so I could see what I've traced and what I haven't.
The magenta is what is done or what is not done.
That's what I've traced. That's what's done.
Okay, already.
You can do it however you want. You don't even have to change it to magenta. All I did was I did an override here, just to. I'll just clear this override when I'm done, so that doesn't show up.
Yeah. Okay.
Anymore.
I think that helps. The magenta.
It does, definitely. Like you can kind of tell here, but I like to. It just makes it a little easier to see what you're doing. Okay, so the actual process of getting how did I get to here? Let's look at that. So we start here. We're at 12 inches equal to foot, and then we need to change the scale, and we need to start tracing over it. So let's look at that actual process. I'm just going to repeat some steps which have already been done, but we'll just do it again. So this is because of the way that exporting images works. It's a little funny, but I think in the end it will make sense. So I'm going to go through this, and it might seem a little confusing, but once we get to the point where we can actually start tracing, I think it'll start making some sense. So the process is, I'll try to explain it. I will export from this original, export an image. So I'm going to come down here and export an image. And you could do a PDF, and that does a little bit better with scaling. It's totally up to you. This isn't a dictate of how you should work. I'm just showing you a way that does work.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
Okay.
So I'm going to create I'll just put this on my desktop because it's just kind of a temporary thing. I'm going to call this DI water. I'll just call it DI water. Doesn't really matter. It's just going to be a temporary image. Yeah, save that. That looks like I've done that before. Okay, DI water. And I'm going to fit the image size to 3000 pixels. I just find that has high enough resolution. So you can repeat that process if you want. It's just the current window. And I tend to make JPEGs fine. Doesn't really matter too much. You'll see why in a moment. If you change it to PNG, that works as well. Can be a little bit better file size. So anyway, you're essentially just taking an image of this so that we can scale that image. Now I'll go ahead and just push that out to my desktop so it'll be available. Now the reason why you need an image is because you cannot scale this. My scale button is not available. The reason it's not available is because I have a bunch of different things selected here, including lines and text. Now, if I was to remove detail groups, detail items, and text from my selection set, I could actually scale. And I can actually do that right here. I'll say, all right, so we're 1:1. So I'll numerically scale to 96, and that'll get me to 1/8 inch per foot. I'll click it right there. All right, but now I'm gonna have to unjoin those elements, and you'll see what the problem is. So cool, I've got my line work scaled, but that doesn't really help me all that much. I mean, I don't know, kind of, you could maybe use this as a starting point, but you see the problem. You can't scale everything. And you would have to then scale all of these individually, and it's just not worth it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you can't scale it, and that's one issue. Another issue is the way this was done. You see, this thing is a detail group. Detail groups won't work for us. We can't add any parameters to it. If you look at the elements that we're adding, this is a detail item. Detail items, you can assign parameters such as chemical class, system abbreviation, temperature, etc. So one issue is the scale. The other issue is that we need to replace those elements with the good elements that we're creating anyway. So there's that. And then, don't worry, we'll get to creating those and modifying those.
Okay.
All right, so that's the scale issue. Okay, so now what we want to do is bring that image back in and then scale it up so that we can trace it. So the way to do that is not to bring it directly into here. Let me just delete this for a moment. I'll just move it. We'll move it by a known amount so I can move it back in case I need to. MV, we're going to move it by, let's say 500. There we go. It's just out of the way. 500. Don't forget that number. Okay, so this is not the way to do it. I'm going to insert image, link image, and I'm on my desktop, and I'm going to go down to DI water, PNG, that's the one I just created. And I'm going to plop it in. I don't know if that's the one I just created. Sorry. I'm going to drag it in, make sure it's the right one, because it should be that original size. DI water, that's back from 9/16. DI water, that's from today. Okay. Sorry, I'm working in Windows Explorer for a second. All right, let me do a test here. Same thing happened when I bring it into here? Oh, it is. Revit's trying to be clever. Revit is pretty clever, but it still gets it wrong. All right. So what I'm noticing here is that when I bring my DI water image, and this is just the image in, then at 12 inches per foot, it matches the scale. And at 1/8 inch per foot, it also matches the scale. Pretty close. But the issue is you can't trust that. All right. And I'll explain why. So yeah, you can just use your link image. Sorry, to complete the thought that I was trying to get to, don't bring it directly into your new file here, thinking that this scale will be correct. This is the wrong way to do it. So please don't bring it into here first. Otherwise, it will cause problems. Okay. The right way
to bring it where? Okay, you're gonna go here. Okay.
Yeah, the right way to do it is to bring it into your original where you exported it from. Just bring it right back into there. Okay. And the reason you're gonna do that is so that you can verify the scale. Okay. So I'm gonna drag this over and I'm just gonna align it with itself essentially. So I'm just gonna nudge it, and you're just looking for eyeball here. And you can start to see why you can't trust it. It's just a little off, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is choose a corner. Corners work well. So I'm going to choose like this upper left corner and align it right there. And already you can see it's slightly off. So I'm going to go to my lower right. So I've aligned my upper left. I'm going to go down to my lower right. And I see that these 2 points should be aligned. And they're not. So what I'm going to do is scale this. So it's currently, you can see right here, the horizontal and vertical scale is 1. And don't ask me why Revit screws this up, but it does. The scale is just slightly off. Maybe it has something to do with that 3,000 pixels. I don't know. Whatever, this is how you fix it. So I'm choosing my image. I'm going to choose my scale option. And I'm going to pick my 2 points. This is going to be a graphical scale because I'm going to pick 2 points. Okay. I'm picking my upper left, which I've already aligned. That's an endpoint because there's a line below that. Now I'm going to go to the point in my image. See, on the left here is my line, and on the right is my image. So I'm going to go to the point where my image sits and pick where kind of the endpoint would land. And now I can graphically scale and bring this back to here, to where the actual endpoint is. Okay, so what I've done is I exported an image, I brought that image right back into the same exact view, and then I scaled it so that it is the correct size. So now, whatever this number ends up being, whatever, you don't need to worry about that because you did it graphically. So that makes sense so far?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
We're just trying to get that image so that it's exactly the right size. I mean, pretty close to the right size because it's got to still fit on the same sheet. Okay. Now, the next step is pretty simple. Just grab that same image and copy it. Copy to clipboard. Go to your new view. Now, this new view is set to 1/8 inch per foot, so 96 times bigger. And I'm going to paste. So now I'll have that very small image, right? And that makes sense. I'm scaling everything up by 96 times. Cool. So I've got my very small image. So now I'm going to scale this one numerically because I know that it's 96. So I'm going to select it, choose my scale, and this time it's going to be numerical, and I am going to click 96. I'm going to scale up 96 times. I pick any point. So now I have an image that is exactly 96 times bigger than it used to be. So it's appropriate for scaling, for tracing. And now it's kind of where it should be.
Okay.
You see, it sort of aligns with where I've been tracing. It doesn't have to be perfect. So, this isn't a model, it's a diagram. So the line work, we'll get into tracing a bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to fit on the sheet. So it's got to be close. So that's how we got here. And that's how we got to the point where I had this image on there.
Okay.
Any questions so far? I know there's more stuff to do, but just so far.
The sheet, for example, you're using one right now. That one is created, but for the other ones, are those sheets created too, or we'll have to create those sheets?
To be clear, are we talking about views or sheets?
Yeah.
So we're looking at a view
Sorry,
right now.
the views.
Yeah.
Not the sheets, the views.
Yeah. So what you do, maybe we'll just do an actual one next. So we've gone through 2 stages now. You saw the end result stage in CDA. You've seen a mid-flight stage here. And now let's dig into the details of a next one that you should work on. So from diagram status, let's see, that was DI water. Somebody's already working on that one. So let's just jump to another one. It can really be any of these that say Revit TBD. All right, so you can choose any of these because they all need to be done.
So those take precedence than the ones that have dates on the bottom?
Yeah, because apparently somebody's already started this. So choose one that nobody has started.
Okay, and number 2 is probably the code for the ones that need to get
Yeah,
started.
I just added one. I had added 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just so that it would order in this particular schedule. There's no other reason for that. Because if it was alphabetical, then INC ready would be after, or it would be before standard. So it just wouldn't make sense. So this just gives you a process due. The number 2s have not been completed. They need to go through 3 and 4 before they're ready for 5.
So out of all those ones you have highlighted right there, if we're gonna start one, then we will create the view.
Yeah.
And start that whole other process you showed me.
Yeah, so let's do that. Okay. So we've got 705N bulk helium system. So we have 705N bulk helium system. That's this view. I'm going to open it up. First thing I'm going to do, and actually this one doesn't even need to be split. This is going to be super easy. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just thinking, there we go, is change this to standardizing, and I'll give an estimated completion time. So we'll say 12. I have no idea. Let's see. 12:02. That's Friday. All right. So now back in diagram status, you've got yours. You've taken ownership of this essentially, or I have at this point. So if somebody's going to start a new one, they'll choose from up here.
Okay.
Cool. All right. There's other ways that we're going to track this, but for now, this is a good way. It's just done right within Revit. Everyone knows where to look. It's right there. Okay. So it's 12 inches per foot equals a foot. It's got detail groups and just simple lines. This is just, let's see, this one right here is just a line. It's not a detail item. So it needs to be updated. So we're going to do the whole process. File, export, and this is going to give us an image. Sorry. Let's copy it first because that was the thing that you were asking about. All right, so I'm going to rename. I'm just going to add to the end of this space do not use. So what this is telling people is don't update this. Don't make any changes to this particular diagram, because if you do, then those changes will not be made in the updated version of this diagram. So that's all this is saying. Don't use this. Don't change anything. The other thing I'm going to do is change the view template to archive, because all of these archive diagrams will not be used. We'll be deleting them eventually. As soon as we replace it on the sheet, like this one, it's already been replaced on a sheet, so we should probably just delete it. But you know how it is about deleting things. People are not willing to do it. Okay.
Exactly.
So we've renamed and taken ownership essentially of this. And now we're going to duplicate. Now, normally with a diagram, I would say duplicate with detailing, because that's the only way you're going to get all this line work. But really, you don't want any of these line work anyway. So duplicate really doesn't do a lot for you except to give you the name.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't save you a ton of work, but we'll go ahead and duplicate anyway, just because it's easy. So I'm going to remove the number because that shouldn't be there. I'm going to change this. I'm going to get rid of all this part of the name. That shouldn't be there. Bulk helium system. So normally I would say change system to central plant, but this one's just going to be the one. This one's pretty easy. It's not going to be, we don't have to split it. It's so minimal. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to leave that as bulk helium system.
And then change the template.
Exactly. Thank you. Change it to, now this is gas. So we're going to use gas phase 1. And if you don't know, just stick it right here. So this is the one that's sort of uncategorized, but if you know if it's gas distribution or gas chemical class, yada, yada. I know that this is, it's helium, so it's a gas. So I'm going to stick it right here, which is going to push it right down here. Okay. All right, I think I told you the wrong thing. Bulk helium system. Yeah, okay. This one should be 3 standardizing. This one should be archive. Sorry about that. That makes sense. Why? This new one is the one that you're standardizing, not this one.
Mm-hmm.
So now this will show up as correct. Bulk helium system is down here with the rest of the archives. All right, got the original. We've got essentially a blank new one, and we're just going to export now the image. Down here to images. Still set as 3000. That's fine. Doesn't matter where you put this because you're the only one that's going to use it as long as you finish. Yeah, works. Again, you bring it right into this original sheet first. There it is. Drag it until something matches. I usually do an upper left and a lower right. And all you can do is eyeball, because there's no end point. There's no line work to reference. So we could do it down here, and that might be more accurate, but I'm going to go ahead and just use, this is a nice corner right here, so I'll use these 2 corners. So I'm going to do a scale.
Scale is like very off.
Yeah, don't ask me. I have no idea. And it's inconsistently off, right? It's off by a different amount this time than it was last.
Yeah, the
So
other
you can
one
figure it
was
out.
not as off.
Oops. So because you're switching back and forth, be sure that when you go to scale, you're doing first a graphical because you're picking 2 points, right? So I'm going to pick my lower right where the endpoint will be, right there. And then I'm going to pick where the endpoint actually is, right there. All right, so now I have my image, which is nicely scaled. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard and paste it right here. There we go. So it's still, this is exactly the same size as it was here. And if I started tracing this, that would not work. So I need to do two things. I need to scale this up 96 times, and I also need to change the scale of my view. Okay. So I can do one or the other first. I don't think it matters. So I'm going to change this to 1/8 inch per foot here. That doesn't change anything here because this is just an image. And then I'm going to choose scale here, and we're going to do numerical and 9:6, and just pick sort of in the center. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Now I'm pretty sure that I've done everything right, but it's a very easy check, sanity check to make sure that it's right. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the actual sheet. So if I select my original view, and actually the name, but I don't like the way that works. But if I select my original sheet, view, I can see that it's on sheet number 705N. Reason I don't like putting the number here is because it's here, and that's the duplicate data, which is destined to become outdated. But anyway, 705N. So I've got my new view here. I'm going to scroll down to 705N, open that one up. There it is. So this is how it should look on a sheet. Now what I'm going to do is just drag on top of there my new view. Bulk helium system. Just going to drag this over. So for a moment, I'll have two identical views on here. I can drag that over and just do sort of a sanity check. You can't see through it, so it's a little tough, but I can see, yeah, that's pretty much it. This is just a sanity check to make sure I got it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
What I'm doing
definitely.
here? Okay. Cool. So I've done my sanity check. I know this is pretty. I've gotten this one right. As you saw before, sometimes the scale can be slightly off. So an additional sanity check that you can do, which you kind of inherently have to do anyway, is I'm going to close this out, and we can start working on the new one. Now, the easiest way to start work on the new one is to go to an existing one, and that's why I was referring back to this CDA before. So I'm going to keep CDA open in the background, and I'll close these DI waters. Okay, so here's CDA, and all we're going to do is steal some content. So for example, we have some diaphragm valves and some lines. So I'm going to grab, if we have any, we got some other types of valves. Oh, I've got a better way to do this anyway. I like stealing from another diagram, but there's a surefire way to find all the content you need, and I'll show you that. There's a diaphragm valve. I'm just going to grab that one, and I'll grab just this line too. All right. I'm going to grab the diaphragm valve and the line that it's on. Control C, come over here, Control B. There we go. I can see that it's pretty close to the right size. Yeah, so that's a good sanity check as well.
Okay.
I know I'm within order of magnitude to being correct. Oh, the other thing I would do is pin this down and then turn off your ability to select pinned elements that way. That way you can't accidentally select and move the image. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. Get this off. This line is a color because it says PCWS right here. Delete that. There we go. Don't worry, we'll get more into that. Okay, so now we have a starting point. We've done a lot of sanity checks, and we can actually start tracing now. This is the main element that you'll be tracing with. It's called diagram, process, pipe, and then the family type is called pipe. Okay. So not a line. So when you go into detail lines and like medium lines, this is sort of the traditional way of doing it, right? And then when you can sort of move this around. That is not the system we're doing. And the reason we're not is what you just saw. This was able to be a color because it can have a system abbreviation, and that's the type of content that we need. So you need to use this element. It also hides itself. So what you had done before, go back to this one, is, oh yeah, these were you, right? Didn't you create these initially from the DWGs?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, Sebastian did.
Okay, somebody did. So what you had to
Yeah,
do is you had this line, right? So let's do create similar there. You had line, and anytime two lines crossed, you needed to add this little piece right here to
yeah, I remember
hide
that
one or the other. It's not even
for the
working yet.
cross. But I remember.
Yeah,
So
it's
now
a pain.
that,
It's annoying to have to do that. So I'm going to delete that and delete that. So now the nice thing about this one, sorry, this one, see I've got that line there. I'll create similar. These automatically hide. They're always going to just
okay,
remain hidden. So that's the awesome thing about these.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'm
So,
going to select this guy, create similar, and I'm just going to start tracing. Boom, boom. And then, so I pick 2 points. I have to pick my endpoint again. That's the unfortunate thing about using these lines. I wish it worked the way that normal lines work. So it's just an extra pick. And then let's fix the magenta thing that I did on the other one. All right, so I'm going to go into visibility graphics. And I'm going to change, add an override here for magenta. And I actually like to make them nice and thick too. So it's clear detail items. And then I think I had to go with the medium lines here to also do it. There we go. So you can very clearly see what has been traced. Okay. Sometimes it gets a little in the way. You can't quite see that. So the other thing I will often do is I'll change this from hidden to wireframe. So if it's not if it's hidden, then it makes it a little tough to see what's behind there. But if you change it to wireframe temporarily again,
but the line does not need to be like a slide or cut right in between, or it does.
exactly, it does not. All right,
Okay.
so I'll add another one here, and let's take off my override again. I really ought to just do a view template for temporarily drafting. All right, so when it's wireframe, yeah, it does not cut, so you don't see that. So the final printed version needs to be hidden line, and then it cuts.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't cut any lines. The families handle that on their own.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the line work. That's some of the families, and these arrows. So I'm going to select my line and just check the end, and then arrow will pop in at the end. I can do that for each of these. So you also don't add the arrow in separately. And that's the reason why it's kind of important to draw these in the direction of flow. Because if you had drawn this line in the other direction,
It's gonna show in the wrong place.
yeah, just check end there and then, yeah. But just flip it. If you ever get it wrong, all you got to do is mirror it. So I'll just mirror this. Don't create a copy. There you go. Just mirror it and you'll be good. You can also show, check the box to show that arrow at the start, but typically it's just needed at the end. All right, so there's some basic tracing that happens, and then we've got some families which already exist, like this diaphragm valve and like this filter. But the way for you to know that is, yeah, you can just look at an existing diagram that's already been done, or go to the legend. So there is a diagram legend, and this has all families which we've created so far for this new diagramming system, and they're somewhat organized. So like that filter we saw that we need right there. So I'm just gonna create similar with this filter, and I'm gonna go here and pop that in place right there. So there we've got a filter. What else? We've got, don't worry about that. There's not a whole lot to this one. This one, the pressurized vessel, this is not going to exist anywhere. Okay, if I come here, we've got a lot of vessels and things, but nothing that matches. How are you doing on time, by the way? Been at this for 45 minutes?
Yeah, I think I can do like 15 more minutes.
Okay, cool. We're almost done.
Okay.
The last bit is creating a family, and it's pretty simple. So we need this guy. It needs to just basically look just like this. By the way, I'll also stick this PT in there. So I'm just going to go to diagram legend. I'll zoom over here to a PT. I'm pretty sure we have a PT. Do we not? Pressure transmitter. I'm going to copy this. All right, I gotta fix this. Sorry, 1 second. Pressure transmitter ought to be PT. Why that wasn't done? That one's supposed to be. Okay, I see. This one is already a pressure transmitter. I need to fix this one. All right, sorry about that. Create similar. I'm going to come back over here and pop that in right there. PT. So notice that this isn't exactly the same. It doesn't matter. That's the purpose of this, is we're standardizing. So I don't care that somebody, there was original standards weren't really in place before. This is the standard element. So that's the correct size there. And you see it snaps into place, right?
Yeah, okay. That was my question. It just snaps, okay.
Yeah. And there's a ball valve right here. I'll quickly grab that one down there. Just doing a create similar, and there we go. Cool. All right, back to this helium pressurized vessel. So helium bulk gas, that's where it's at. So just take this name. All right, that's what we're going to do, helium pressurized vessel. So what we're going to do is just start with an existing vessel, something that's kind of sort of similar. Doesn't really matter too much. We'll just grab this one. Okay, so we're going to edit family. And we can, I think I just copy paste. Let's see. If I turn on the ability to select images and just grab this image, Control C, come over here, Control V. Hey, cool, I can. All right, there we go. So that's the vessel right there we need to create. All it is grab that image from that PNG, and this is essentially what we're going to trace. So let's move this off to the side. We might use it as a reference here in a minute. Just going to move that over there. And it's just line work, right? So mostly just line work, a bit of sort of making sure things are working the way they're supposed to be working. But I'm going to, in order to get it to snap right, I'm going to make those feet match with where the snapping point, this intersection is. So I'm going to make those match. That works. And I can just basically do a quick bit of tracing. So I'm going to draw some line work. Detail item makes the most sense for these. Yeah. I'll draw a quick rectangle. There we go. And you see it's mostly nominal, right? So this is 1.5 by 8.1. It doesn't really matter what the dimensions are, but the point is we're just eyeballing, and it's generally a good idea for stuff like this to draw it in nominal dimensions. All right, then we've got an arc that's kind of a half circle. So we will do that here. I'll do, let's see, center, arc center right there, there to there. All right, get rid of that. We'll mirror that from the midpoint. And the other thing we'll do is actually move this to the midpoint. So, oops, that's why you pin those things. Let's see, tab to select my new line work here. Oh, I mirrored without a copy. Sorry if this is getting confusing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remirror again. I mean, you know how this works. I'm just kind of blowing through it quickly. This is just general sort of Revit drafting stuff, not too exciting. So I'm just trying to blow through it.
It was exciting when you discovered it. I remember it took me a while to discover that you could like copy or not copy your mirror.
Yeah.
And it was exciting when I found that.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. All right, cool. So actually, I'm going to pin that because it's getting in my way. There we go. There we go. That a couple times. Good enough. Again, it doesn't really matter that it's perfect. Now, I try not to question too much. Like, why is this thing? Why does it look exactly like this? I try to just kind of make it somewhat match, but be somewhat reasonable. So, like for example, I trace that. Oops. And then move this so that its midpoint is aligned there. But make things nice and even and mirrored, you know. That's essentially what I'm trying to do here. And then we're connecting with line here. It'd be nice to have a little connector over on this side as well. So we'll add just a bit right there. See how that works. Okay, so I can get rid of this guy. And I've got my little pressurized, oh, I forgot my feet. All right, again, because I'm anal, I like to get rid of that. I like to make things match, so I can't leave it just like that. I'll have to move it so that the midpoint matches up with the midpoint. I'm also going to delete that line. And there we go. Okay, and then I'll mirror this. Cool. All right, it's looking a little better. All right, so the last thing I need to do is just, you notice when I select this, it's just line work, right? But when I select this one, you notice that it all highlights. And that's intentional. Yeah. It's for some features that we're going to do in the diagrams. So you just do one more thing where you add what do I do? This thing. Nope. There it is. Add a solid fill white filled region. Right. So let's just create a filled region and a solid filled white. That works. And we're just going to use some existing line work here. And these are going to be a little bit more tricky. We'll have to break them, but actually do one side. And all right, so I'm going to break this. Going to trim, extend corner. A nice. Now we're going to break this. We're just going to have a single filled region, right? I'm going to mirror this. All right, break this one and trim, extend corner. There we go. I think that's it. So we got a nice filled region there. Okay, done with this. Get rid of it. Last thing I want to do is fix the name because it's currently chemical treatment plant tank, and this needs to be what was it? Helium pressurized vessel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing, and then when we do a save as, the name tank chemical, that's going to change. So we're doing a file save as family. Now these go up on BIM 360. So I can choose ACC docs here, Gordon Prill, design documents, and process piping. There's the family library, and then we have diagram elements here. I think, yeah, diagram elements. Keeping them sort of separate out here, and they have a naming convention that's hierarchical. So diagram process kind of for everything. What is it? It's, I mean, basically a tank. So I'm going to continue calling this one a tank. And this one we'll call it, I don't know, helium. This is the only type of tank I think we're going to need for helium. So diagram process tank helium. That makes the most sense. Save that. Load it into my project. It comes into the wrong view, of course, because Revit likes to do that. I'll switch over to the correct view and drop it in. Align that here. There we go. Pick my endpoint there. Okay, so now I have my helium pressurized vessel, and I can give it a system abbreviation and other such things. Whatever stuff I need to add to it, I can add. So here's my in progress diagram.
Okay, perfect. And what about the text? Just write a regular text.
Yeah, so no. Refer back to the other ones. In some cases, you do need text. So let's take a look at this whole thing. And we'll filter and see where text is. 17. Not too many of them. So these big blocks of text, that's just text. And actually, just a second. So yeah, these big blocks. And then these, so that's this one included. These, I hated to do this, but I kind of was out of time. So yeah. So mostly only stuff like this should be actual just Revit text. Everything else should not. I'll show you. Yeah. So reset. The rest of this stuff is a tag. So this is a tag, a pipe tag. It's set to system. So it shows 3 inch ANSI. Paul tends to get me screwed up here sometimes. He's used the wrong thing there. Let me show you a better example. There we go. This guy has the pipe size 1/2 inch. So when it's tagged with pipe size, it shows up as 1/2 inch. So if I change it here, it's just text. Oh wait, no, this one is actual pipe size. But so if I change this to 1 inch, then the tag reflects that. So you need to use the actual tag wherever possible. See, all these bits of text are actually tags. And then just use text only for situations like this.
But the tags are mostly already uploaded to the model, right? So
yeah, they're already here.
Like a matter of just touching and it will show.
Right. So if this, so when you you just use your standard annotate and then tag by category. Now the issue with this diagram, because it's all custom, everything here, like most of the content, is a detail item. So whether it's equipment or an accessory or pipe, it's all detail item, right? So if you tag by category, the category is detail item. So you kind of don't know which one you're going to get until you tag the first one. I tag it and say, oh, okay, well, the one it gave me was diagram, let's see, tag pipe system. All right. So if that's the wrong one, let's say, for example, I want, my intent is to, let's go to the new. My intent is to tag this vessel. All right, so I tag by category, and the tag it gave me is the same one, tag pipe system. Well, that's not really going to work. So I'll just switch it from that one to, I think just mark number is what we're using. So you, again, refer back to the other one. So this tag that we're using for this vessel, is item, detail item mark. So it's just giving us the mark. So I go back over to here, and I'll switch this one out to the detail item mark tag. And there we go. Still says question mark, because we haven't added a mark. But what I can do here is either select it here to modify it, or as you know, when I select it here, it's the same thing. So helium, they didn't tell us what the actual number is, so I don't know. And turn that leader off, and there you
go. Okay.
Okay, last thing.
And the
promise, and then
air products package.
Exactly. That was exactly what I wanted to do next. So that is right here. It's the process boundary. So I can just copy and paste it. Drag handles. If you ever come across one that's not square or rectangular, just make it square or rectangular. Don't worry about if it's a polygon. Don't try to create a polygon. Just make it square.
Okay.
And then the same tag here. I'm going to tag this thing. Turn meter off. And again, that's just this mark, right?
And we will add another tag for the one that says helium bulk gas yard area.
Not necessarily. So what I would like for you to do is just sort of go through the first pass. Don't worry that you get every last thing, because a lot of this is up to interpretation.
Okay.
We're going to go through a process of checking these to make sure we captured everything. And it's a lot about standardizing the way that things are captured. Oh, actually, here's the tag. So there you go. That's a bit of interpretation right there. So this should actually be this tag right here. And then I'm not sure what this one is. It's the tubes, and then whatever this is. So yeah, if you don't know, that's fine. Just leave it sort of like it's at. You can add some notes here. You just write a note to Paul. I'm not sure what was happening with this particular area. Here's what I think you should do. Whatever you need to do. You can add that right here in the diagram.
Okay.
But don't think that it's got to be like a finished product when you're done. We're going to go through a checking process.
Okay, sounds great. Now, how do we get to this model?
Oh, I thought you were on this model, or I thought you were on BIM 360. So let me.
We are, but like the actual path.
Okay, cool.
I want to open a model that is not the proper one. I don't know.
Let me show you that in just a second. For now, I want to synchronize because I want to show you the way that I want you to synchronize. Okay, so choose the synchronize and modify settings each time, and write a note about what you did.
Okay.
Select. Please do that each time you synchronize. You don't have to synchronize in order to save. You can simply choose the save button as you work. But whenever you synchronize, please add that tag. But don't think that you have to synchronize every single time you simply want to save. If you just want to save your work, just save. And then synchronize when you're ready to push your work to the cloud. Okay, so for finding the model, when you open up Revit, you'll want to go to Autodesk Docs. You need to be signed in with your Autodesk account that was added to BIM 360. Go to Autodesk Docs. You'll see the projects to which you belong. Gordon Prill, Project Elgin. Go to Design Documents. That's the very first one. Go to Process. That's number 9. Go to Revit. And then go to the first one,
Okay.
I'll probably take this one out. It's just a CFD that I did, and just click here. All right, we went a little long. I got another meeting I dropped for. That's I'm gonna stop recording.
This was great. Yeah, this was really good. Thank you very much. And